I have with us at this hour Jasmine Shah, a young politician who actually worked hands-on, steered the Punjab election campaign. So congratulations to you, Jasmine. It is a big moment. And Sanjay, you came just like you live a long life, because Sanjay Baru was just making the argument that Kejriwal represents hope for a younger generation more than the Prime Minister does today. So big, huge victory in my home state of Punjab. Well done. But what do you attribute to? It's clearly an anti-establishment inqilab vote, as Mr. Kejriwal tweeted. But all of your party mates have today all been saying that this is the arrival of Kejriwal on the national stage. Now it's Kejriwal for PM as a contender in 2024. How do you see the national impact, Jasmine, of what we have seen happen in Punjab?
Barka, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You asked me two questions. First, what do we attribute the Punjab tsunami to? And second, where does AAP go from here? Let me take the first question first. It is an overwhelming mandate. Let me say this is not some kind of a tactical brilliance because of which AAP has won today. This is almost once in a century moment for a state like Punjab when such a large mandate has been given. And it therefore signifies a break from the past. What is the past? The past was that for the last 50 years, two parties were, switching their seats in power. People would be fed up with one party, they would give power to the other party. They'll again be fed up with one and go to the other. And the issues of the people have been festering and been neglected for decades. You talk about the drug mafia, you talk about the sand mafia, liquor mafia. So Punjab has these long-standing issues which no political party seemed to be able to move the needle on. And today, we fought obviously Punjab elections in 2017, but perhaps we were at that time not able to convince the people of Punjab that we are ready for Punjab, which is not the case in 2022, where people have seen us running a very mature and an effective government in Delhi, which we call the Kejriwal model of governance. People believed Kejriwal model of governance. People believed that AAP today, more than any other party in India, stands for change. It stands for a break from the past, and it stands for the aspirations that youth have for this country. The youth are not interested in Mandir Bana Diya, Samshan Ghat. These are the kind of narratives that are dominating election campaigns everywhere. We are the only people who are talking about jobs. We're talking about quality schooling, education, healthcare, hospitals. So I think the new India really identifies with Aam Aadmi Party. And we were able to set a base. Our cadre, our people, our volunteers have worked very hard to go to absolute corners and villages and pins of Punjab, and that is where that is what has resulted in this victory today.
Can I ask you, is all the Aam Aadmi Party leaders we've been talking to all day, and you haven't answered that part of the question, and I agree with you on Punjab, it's an anti-establishment, anti-politics as usual, a hopeful vote, as Dr. Baru was saying, and you're absolutely right about the mood in Punjab. What does this do to the national aspirations of the Aam Aadmi Party? It isn't a hop, skip, and jump, as you know from being in politics, to go from one state to the next. It's a long, arduous process. Punjab took you 2 tries. And Punjab is a unique state, and you're not facing the Modi juggernaut there as you would in other states. That's another key difference. Firstly, do you now see Mr. Kejriwal as a natural aspirant and as a natural prime ministerial contender in 24, Jasmine?
Barka, I don't think as a party that is what motivates us. Neither Mr. Arvind Kejriwal nor even people like me, ordinary volunteers and other leaders of the party. What we really wanted at all points in time is to really fix the issues of India that no party has dared to dream and fix reliably for the last 75 years. Today, we have a vision for what the government-funded education system should look like. We have a vision for what the healthcare system should look like. We have a vision for women empowerment. When we announced 1,000 rupees direct cash transfers for women, there was a deep-seated thinking behind that idea. When we announced free bus rides in Delhi, it was about women empowerment. So I think as Aam Aadmi Party has matured substantially, we have a track record of delivery. And we are very confident that across the country, people are now going to demand the Kejriwal model of governance. Either their current parties deliver them on these issues that matter to their day-to-day lives, else Aam Aadmi Party is today an option across India. And I think this is the message that Punjab sends. Obviously, Aam Aadmi Party will have to put in a lot of work on the ground Today, I mean, we made a great start in Goa. We are very proud about that. In Uttarakhand, we didn't have a great show. So as a party, we will need to invest in our cadres, build our base. But we are ready to do that. Wherever the people of India, be it from Kerala to Jammu and Kashmir, from Assam to Gujarat, wherever people of India feel that they want to go for the Kejriwal model of governance, Aam Aadmi Party is willing to fight the good fight.
Well, those are your shots of your sort of two seats that you were
Mumbai,
being in Goa. Is that Mumbai or is it Goa? Well, we've actually merged all the
I think
celebration
Goa.
shots together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Goa. Nilanjan Sarkar of the CPR, Center for Policy Research, well-known psephologist, is with us. Jasmine, you finally, in journalism, it would call burying the lead. Your last sentence was the headline. The AAP you now see as an alternative everywhere, a possible alternative everywhere in India, but you recognize, of course, that it has to be built bottom upwards. It's not actually going to be easy. I want one comment from you. I know you're here with us for a little bit longer, but I want to open up your comments for our panel. One last question to you, then I'll go to the others. We were talking earlier about whether Mr. Kejriwal in some ways has borrowed and learned from the Modi playbook. Strong cult of personality, welfareism, a certain kind of emphasis on nationalism, and no aversion to a kind of Nehru, to a kind of soft place for religion in the political imagery of his politics. What would you say to that, Jasmine?
I think there cannot be any comparison, I would say, between the operating styles of Mr. Modi and Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. And I don't say that because I work with Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. Here's a leader who has genuinely believed in saying that when he says that, education and healthcare is what is going to transform India. We have been given only 5 to 7 years of an opportunity. Today, nobody debates the fact that AAP has done a wonderful work in education and has set up a model for the people of this country. Mr. Modi has been in politics for how many years? Can anybody say that he has fixed the government schools of even one state? Can anybody say that he has built a world-class healthcare system, be it primary healthcare of mohalla clinics or tertiary healthcare? So I think we see the agendas and the priorities of these two leaders are very, very different. Obviously, we respect the sentiments of the people. We are Deshbhakt. We don't deny. I mean, our definition of Deshbhakti is different from what BJP's macho Deshbhakti is. For us to stand by the people of this country, to make sure that the goods of governance reaches the last mile. The poorest of the poor today sees in Arvind Kejriwal as a person who they can trust, who they can believe in, and that is for us through Deshbhakti. That we said that today, and you must have seen that, Arvind Kejriwal ji said that हमें बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर और भगत सिंह का सपना पूरा करना है. What is उनका क्या सपना था? उनका सपना था कि अमीर हो या गरीब हो, be it the child of a car or a cab driver or that of a judge or an officer, they should have an equal crack at opportunities of life, and that will happen only if you make India's healthcare and education system at par with that of the developed world. Only Arvind Kejriwal believes and is working on that dream.
Okay, Jasmine, stay with us. I know our panelists have been listening to you carefully and they'll have a lot to say to you. I stay as long as you can. Nilanjan, Dr. Baru. Dr. Baru, if I can start with you. You were just talking about the AAP representing hope more than the BJP. You heard young Jasmine Shah differentiating between the BJP's idea of Desh Bhakti and their own, saying there's no comparison between the operational styles of the two leaders. What would you say, given what you've heard, Dr. Baru?
Well, let me say that I know a lot of young people like Mr. Jasmine Shah personally. And so far, all of them have come across to me in the manner in which Mr. Shah has just come across, of being humble and decent. And I think that kind of humility and decency is important in Indian politics. We have too many people who are arrogant, who are brash, who push themselves onto us across the country in different political parties. And I think what we have seen, some of us who live in Delhi have seen, is the new style of governance. I've met many of the MLAs of the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. There is a new culture. And I think India needs that new culture. The kind of brashness and assertiveness that has come. I mean, you talked about religion and the use of religious symbolism. There is a Hinduism that all of us accept, which is soft in its essence. It has never been an aggressive religion. But what we have seen, the politicization of Hindutva has been assertive, aggressive, anti-others. love jihad and this kind of nonsense. So therefore, uh, there is, as I said, Kejriwal is in a sense appealing to a new generation and new members of a generation that are looking for decency in public life. So I'm really happy to have heard Mr. Shah just now. And as I said, I know a lot of other young people like him in Delhi who have been working with Aam Aadmi Party. And I think that is what, if across the country that happens, we will see a new India.
Okay, you are hopeful. Amit Puri of the BJP is joining us. But Nilanjan, do you have any comments on what we have heard thus far from Jasmine and also, of course, Arvind Kejriwal's victory speech, Bhagwant Man's extremely, I thought, charismatic and funny speech where he did a roster list of the big losers in Punjab. And he's a natural politician with all his, I mean, the opposition did try and corner him on a number of issues, but he came out tops. And in many ways, it was a vote for what, I met voters in Punjab who all spoke about what Jasmine just called the Kejriwal model. So there used to be a Gujarat model, and now there's a Delhi model. And that is how Kejriwal is building his political story. Nilanjan?
Look, I mean, Indian politics right now, especially in North India and the heartland, is a politics that's in flux. When we look at the results today, we see a Congress party that has not done very well. And we know that as far as national politics is concerned, there are a number of head-to-head BJP Congress fights in national elections, and the BJP, as I've mentioned many times in the past, 2014, 2019, the BJP has won more than 90% of the time going head-to-head against the Congress. It's strike rate against Congress more than 90%. What it means is that at a national level, the opposition can no longer be competitive if that's what's happening with the Congress. Now, in numbers, just Punjab and Delhi, perhaps Aam Aadmi Party doesn't have the empirical impact that Congress does. But given that it is a system in flux, and given that Arvind Kejriwal and the quote-unquote Delhi model appeals so strongly across North India, not just in, it's one of these funny things. It's not actually just in Punjab. Even in UP, where obviously Aam Aadmi Party was not going to win, you do hear people telling me about Kejriwal, right? I mean, he's a national figure in that way. And so because we're in a period where politics is in flux, the next, maybe not by 2024, but the next 5 to 7 years will be very determinative of how politics changes in North India, whether Aam Aadmi Party is able to break in, whether it's able to find the language of opposition, and win the trust of people who are perhaps upset with the BJP. I think what the UP verdict, just very quickly, I think what the UP verdict shows us is that there actually was a lot of anger against the
Let's
BJP.
just switch to the UP slide as Nilanjan talks about it, and then I want to go back to Jasmine and bring in Amit Puri as well. Yeah, go ahead, Nilanjan. Yeah.
I think just very quickly, I think there was, in fact, a lot of anger against the BJP. A lot of us picked it up, but we also knew that those people in the end would say, but I'm still going to vote for the BJP because I just don't trust that the opposition can do it for me. So the big challenge for Aam Aadmi Party or any sort of opposition actor is to get that trust. And once they develop that trust, they can be a genuine challenge to the BJP in the Hindi heartland.
That's interesting. And I want to bring in Jasmine on this point. Jasmine, where, the AAP and the Congress had an ill-fated brief relationship that went up in smoke, so to speak. Is that a relationship that can be reconsidered, or is the Congress now irrelevant to many of the non-BJP forces today looking to build a wider alliance? When I interviewed Arvind Kejriwal, albeit before this historic result, and I tried to ask him about him and Mamta Banerjee. He was very careful, very charming about Mamta. He said she's my Didi, whatever she says. But today, it's a different place. There's a new gung-ho-ness in the AAP worker. The workers are talking about Arvind Kejriwal throwing his hat into the ring for 24. It's clear that any anti-BJP front will need a face. Is Arvind Kejriwal that face?
But I do not think that AAP is, worried about these questions at the moment. What is genuinely in our hearts and our minds is what to do. And I'm talking because today we have received this historic mandate. Our worry today is how can we set Punjab on the path of progress? The issues that we came across, and we're all aware about, the drug menace in Punjab, the situation of the industry, agriculture. These are deep-seated issues, and that is what really motivates us. We are dedicated towards resolving these. And automatically, just the way, if you look at why did Punjab vote for us, that's not because we decided to create a smart coalition of some jatis and some dharms and all. No, we set our hearts, we worked in Delhi, we showed that here's an honest government by a leader who is completely committed to the welfare of the people, and he has delivered. So our model is very clear. We are not going to be overly worried about what happens to Congress, what happens to the other non-BJP or the opposition parties. We are going to set ourselves for success in Punjab. We want to create a Punjab that the entire country can be proud of. And if we manage to do that, you will see that, Aam Aadmi Party will not have to worry about alliances anywhere. And that's very clear that at the national front today, with the performance that Congress has had, and the fact that today Aam Aadmi Party and Congress are the only two opposition parties with two chief ministers, that AAP is the natural opposition to BJP. Congress is on the decline, and nobody, not even the cadre and the MLAs of Congress today, believe that Congress could be the opposition in 2024.
Okay, Yogendra Yadav is with us, and as is Amit Puri. Yogendra Yadav, if I can start with you. Jasmine Shah of the Aam Aadmi Party just was finishing his remarks in this wheel by saying that AAP is now the natural alternative to the BJP. The Congress is out of the picture, and they have two seats under their belt. Mamata Banerjee's experiment to go beyond Bengal in the East didn't work. Would you agree, given the historic win by Mr. Kejriwal and Bhagwant Mann in Punjab, that they are now in pole position to be at the helm of whatever formation comes up to take on the BJP in 2024. There's a lot to say about today's results, but since Jasmine just spoke, I thought I'd get your reactions to that. Yogendraji.
Barkha, I didn't manage to hear much of what Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson had to say, so I've just heard what you said. And I don't mean to enter into any debate. If that is what you had in mind, I'll have to excuse myself.
No, there's no debate. I'm just asking you for your impressions of the state of politics today. Go ahead.
On Punjab verdict, I would just say that, yes, I mean, it's absolutely, BJP has had a resounding victory in Uttar Pradesh. They have reasons to be excited. Punjab, Aam Aadmi Party has had more than a resounding victory today in Punjab, so they have reasons to be even more excited. Whether they become the natural and national alternative as they would wish to, and as they have every reason to wish to be, would depend on whether the party is able to address some of the challenges that it faces when it scales itself up. You've already spoken about TMC's inability to scale itself up. That we have seen. In the case of Aam Aadmi Party, it is yet to be seen. To my mind, the success of Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab is above all a vote of no confidence in the entire political establishment for their incompetence, for their insensitivity, for their corruption. People were just fed up, and they turned to the one party they could see, which seemed like an alternative. This may not be the best day, but as a journalist, you would remember, Barkha, that in the last 5 years, Aam Aadmi Party did not manage to play much of an opposition in Punjab. They had 20 MLAs, they ended up with about 10. I do not recall any major agitation, protest, or oppositional role that Aam Aadmi Party played in Punjab in the last 5 years. So people were not looking at their performance in Punjab. They were looking for some hope, which they thought came from outside. The challenges. The first challenge is that unlike Delhi, which is a revenue surplus state, Punjab is a state which is seriously in debt. How would any political party, and this is not just Aam Aadmi Party, how would any political party manage that state and fulfill all the promises that they have made would be the first challenge. The second challenge is agriculture. Punjab agriculture is stagnating. So far, Aam Aadmi Party has been primarily an urban party with very little engagement with the rural and agricultural policies. So the second challenge would be to actually come up with agriculture policies, not just some jumla, policies which would actually address the acute agrarian stagnation and crisis of Punjab. The third challenge is that Aam Aadmi Party has got the support of the Sikhs, above all, Jat Sikhs, as all the surveys are showing, along with others as well, in the expectation that the party would take a strident secular position. In the last 2 years, Aam Aadmi Party's performance, especially its silence during the Delhi riots, have raised many questions. And the challenge, therefore, is to actually prove to the minorities that the party actually takes a secular line. The fourth challenge is that Punjab in the last 500 years has resisted the rule of Delhi Darbar. Now, Aam Aadmi Party would obviously have to change its decision-making patterns, because any impression of being governed from Delhi is something Punjabis would resist with everything they have. And finally, the challenge is of addressing the problem of nasha, liquor and drugs. Given the track record of Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, they would really need to change tax and to come up with something alternative, something very different. If they manage to address these challenges, of course, they have every reason to emerge as the national alternative, especially in view of Congress's dismal performance. But that remains to be seen.
Can I ask you to actually also comment on Uttar Pradesh? And of course, Jasmine is still with us. We can get him to pick up some of these points, but Amit Puri of the BJP also hasn't spoken. So Yogendra ji, your take on Uttar Pradesh, the decimation of the Congress, 2.5% officially on the EC, but actually 1% probably is where the Congress vote share is going to end up. For non-BJP parties, the Congress is now perhaps the weakest link.
Barkha, there isn't much to be spoken about the Congress in Uttar Pradesh. It was a non-starter. It is a non-entity. And I would say about Congress, I would say this about Samajwadi Party. The easiest thing in the world then is to believe that the one who was defeated got everything wrong. Congress did not get everything wrong in Uttar Pradesh, but they were simply outside the contest. There was some energy in what the Congress did. There was some freshness, smart selection of candidate for a party which has no hope at all. In fact, their vote share have shrunk. So there's not much to comment upon that. The larger picture of Uttar Pradesh, and I think that's something we should confront honestly, because if we say it's people's mandate, then I cannot celebrate people's mandate when it suits me, when Mamata Banerjee manages to defeat BJP, and then not respect it when it doesn't suit me. So in all humility, we should accept this mandate for what it is and accept it as a defeat. Not because we were in contest. People like me we had no candidate. But we had stakes in this election. Everyone, Barkha, you, I had stakes in this election because it concerns our next generation. And the fact is, we have lost. We have, and there should be, nothing can redeem this. No reference to percentage of votes of Samajwadi Party or this or that. These are all alibis. The fact is that we lost it. Those who believe in constitutional values lost it. Those who speak of Gandhi, Baba Saheb, Bhagat Singh, we lost it. And we did not lose it to some alien outside force. We lost it because our own people decided against it. So that poses a very, very serious challenge. And Uttar Pradesh is a moment to really introspect for us. To my mind, the answer, you must have heard it earlier from me, my answer is simply this, that the earlier ruling class, those who have ruled this country for the first 50, 60 years, are squarely responsible for squandering away three biggest resources of this country: our nationalism, our religious traditions, including Hinduism, and our cultural heritage. Our ruling class was deracinated, did not pay attention to these things, and as a result of this, those who have no claim whatsoever, should have had no claim on nationalism, today are the champions of nationalism. Those who do not understand our cultural heritage talk about culture and tradition all the time. And once you establish that kind of a relationship, which BJP has in much of North India and West India, then they have a culture connect with the voter, which goes beyond the calculus of losses and gains. So all this talk that we've heard since the morning about Labharti and so on, That, to my mind, is not all that important. The election was decided before it began
Yeah.
because BJP had
And
established that.
though I'm glad you made the point about, it disturbs me when in our commentary on politics, we start judging the voter. It's a little similar to Hillary Clinton calling Trump voters a basket of deplorables, because the fact is you can't pick and choose the kind of voter that you like. We're all the same people. Can I bring in Amit Puri ji for first comments on the UP win? And then I do want to go to both Nilanjan and Jasmine. Amit ji, namaskar. Congratulations
Namaskar.
on the beat. हाँ जी.
Thank you.
योगी जी की जीत है कि मोदी जी की जीत है?
Please allow me. Before
Please.
I start and open up, a very good evening to all of you. And I'm grateful this is the third successive elections. I'm sharing the platform with you after elections. With all magnanimity in my command through you, I want to congratulate entire 25 crore population of Uttar Pradesh for the reason one, they have voted for MY, a new MY in Uttar Pradesh. Modi, Yogi, not the traditional MY. Number two, it's a pro-cumbency vote with 3% hike in the BJP vote. For the reason one, it was a midterm appraisal for the central government also. And the PPP model what? By PPP model, I mean politics of performance, pro-poor policy, and the personality of MY. For the reasons, भय भूख भ्रष्टाचार पर वार का जन समर्थन हुआ, विकास की रफ्तार, रोजगार और कोरोना पे वार का समर्थन हुआ। पहली बार यह तय हुआ कि यह कहा जाता था कि बीजेपी कांग्रेस को हरा सकती है लेकिन क्षेत्रीय दलों से पिट जाती है। ये इस मिथक को भी तोड़ दिया उत्तर प्रदेश में। यह मिथक भी तोड़ दिया। नोएडा जाने वाला चीफ मिनिस्टर या तो चीफ मिनिस्टर नहीं रहता या सरकार में नहीं आता। 1980 के बाद कोई सरकार रिपीट नहीं हुई। एक एबरेशन था मैडम गांधी के असैसिनेशन के बाद 1984 के अंदर। उसके बाद यह पहली बार है कि सिटिंग गवर्नमेंट रिपीट हुई है। और बीजेपी के लिए हम 67 और 77 में जनसंघ में कोलिशन गवर्नमेंट्स में थे, लेकिन 1991 में एब्सोल्यूट मेजॉरिटी की गवर्नमेंट के बाद हम थंपिंग मेजॉरिटी से पहली बार लौट करके आए हैं। कोई बाय करे, बोरो करे या बरी करे, ये उसके ऊपर है। हम तो अटल जी के अनुयायी है। हम किसी की एनाटमी करने के लिए नहीं आए। हम ना जीत में मस्त है ना हार में पस्त है। हम केवल एक ही बात कह रहे हैं, धन्यवाद है कि आज ईवीएम मुन्नी बदनाम की तरह बदनाम नहीं हुई, नहीं तो हर शाम इलेक्शन के जो 400 सीटें 403 में जीतने का दावा एक रात पहले तक करते हैं, वो शाम को ईवीएम का तबर्रा पढ़ने लगते हैं।
नहीं, ये आपने बहुत important point कही कि till last night the integrity of the democratic process was being questioned, but with the Samajwadi Party making dramatic gains themselves, I don't think the party would in fact do that. Can I just bring in Nilanjan briefly and then Jasmine? We're also seeing Shashi Tharoor now going on Twitter to say if we have to succeed, change is unavoidable. We have to see what churn may happen within the Congress. Nilanjan, your take, and then I'll come to Jasmine and back to Amit Puri and Yogendra. Go ahead, Nilanjan.
On Congress? Or
on just what your takeaway is, what this means for 2024, I think is where our focus now,
I think that there are two questions when we sort of want to think about what the politics is going to look like in 2024 for the opposition. One is a brute force arithmetic calculation. And it is still the case that the BJP and Congress will go head to head in a number of fights all across the heartland. Now, if that is the case, and we look at the kinds of numbers that you've seen in 2014 and 2019, where the BJP has a strike rate of more than 90% against the Congress in both 2014 and 2019. It doesn't look like 2024 will be dramatically different if we're going by what we've seen today. So, on the arithmetic of it, it's hard to imagine right now a national politics that is different. But political narrative is different. Right? When we think about the role that Mamata Banerjee has played in the opposition, perhaps the role that Kejriwal will play in the opposition, this is not a function of their numerical strength. This is a function of the ability to raise your voice and say something that credibly can damage can counteract the ruling party. I think the strongest evidence we have of that is the farmers' protest. The farmers' protest is not an electoral movement, but it is a popular movement that genuinely was able to make
And yes,
demands on
the
the government.
BJP won Lakhimpur Kheri. The BJP has done very well in
Exactly.
Western UP. So there
That's
are a
right.
lot of intuitive, and I think Yogendra Yadav is correct to flag them that you can keep, looking for sort of rationalizations in this verdict. The BJP just won plain and simple,
That's right.
despite many reasons that should have intuitively put it on the defensive in UP.
That's right. And so that's why I say that our understanding of what the opposition needs to be in 2024 should not be directly connected to the electoral arithmetic. Quite honestly, if we're being rational, it's hard to see the electoral arithmetic work out for the opposition. The focus for political opposition should be to be able to come up with a cogent narrative that genuinely challenges the BJP on a number of core ideological and policy issues, and that slowly starts connecting with the voter. This
Yeah,
is not
I'm sorry,
something
I'm
that's going to
jumping
be
in.
turned on in a minute.
I'm jumping in. I just want to explain. Can we take the banner off so we can see this? The Prime Minister is reaching the BJP headquarters. He's running a bit late. He is to address workers shortly, and we will. Can we take the banner off? We will be cutting across to him as soon as he does that. Jasmine, if I can bring you in on what many people who have voted for you had disquiet in Delhi as well, that somewhere the Aam Aadmi Party had to dull the ideology where it started. When I say dull, I don't know if that's the right word, but at least mute it or become muted about it, because there was this fear that any position taking on issues of liberalism, on issues of pluralism, on the riots would somehow give the advantage to the BJP. Do you think that's what's happened with your party? Sorry, you're on mute. Let's just unmute.
Yeah.
Jasmine, please. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that is a fair criticism, though we do hear that every once a while. And the reason why I say that is that, be it Delhi riots, let's take that example, we very clearly have said that these have been completely sponsored by the BJP, and not just the Delhi riots, the way the lieutenant governor has usurped the powers of the Delhi government, and the entire riots, you must be seeing the kind of almost the ridicule that is happening on the name of prosecution of the riot cases in Delhi. Where the same language is being copy pasted across charge sheets, and we have called the BJP out at each and every stage that this just shows further proof that this was a completely manufactured riots. Now, interestingly and funnily, every time we say that, Congress did not bother to attack the BJP. Congress was always attacking the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. So tell me, who is it that really is standing for the minorities, if that is the question we are trying to discuss? I would say that
Yeah.
Delhi is different because you have to understand that the powers that the Delhi government has, law and order is not a part of that, and therefore we are severely limited. As much as we would like to have intervened through police and through other law and order machinery, we couldn't do that. And therefore, Punjab is going to be a test, and it'll be an answer to many of these concerns that people, as I said,
I think that's a
it's
good
an
point.
unfair bias, and we'll see it. Let's have hope. Let's give AAP a chance. This is the first full state that we have, and we are really committed. I heard Yogendra ji talk about a lot of points, and we are completely committed to resolving a lot of those issues. Give us a chance, and that's what the people of Punjab have decided to do. That एक मौका उन्होंने अरविंद केजरीवाल और भगवंत मान की जोड़ी को दिया है, and we are committed to delivering on all our promises.
Okay. We can talk about the Delhi riots at length on another day. I think those concerns have been flagged. What I want to ask all of you is where politics goes from here. Jasmine, I'll start with you, then Amit Puri, and then Yogendra ji. We will have to go to the Prime Minister shortly. So if you could keep your comments brief. Jasmine, go ahead.
For us, it's very clear that AAP's victory by an overwhelming mandate in Punjab signals to people across the country, be it from Kerala to Kashmir, from Gujarat to Assam to Uttarakhand, Goa, that today you have an opposition, a viable option in an opposition. If you're willing to give one chance to Aam Aadmi Party, our appeal to people across India today is that we are committed to working and fixing schools, healthcare system, issues of youth education, employment, women empowerment. But give us a chance. We are fairly committed, and if we do not work for these 5 years, please reject us. Absolutely, by all means, you should reject us. But today, do not say that अरे मोदी नहीं है, उसके सामने किसको देंगे, कांग्रेस को वोट देंगे. I mean, we are tired of these kinds of explanations. And today, the people of Punjab have shown that, look, we are willing to put our money on a new, fresh start, and they're willing to trust Mr. Kejriwal and his honest track record of delivering in Delhi.
ओके, अमित जी, आपसे एक संक्षेप में सवाल पूछूंगी। ये जो जीत है, इसके बाद क्या योगी जी भी एक नेशनल प्लेयर बन गए हैं? अमित जी को
उत्तर
अनम्यूट कर लीजिए
प्रदेश,
प्लीज। जी
हाँ, मैं ये मानता हूं कि 1947 के बाद 1951 से इलेक्शन हुए उत्तर प्रदेश में, किसी चीफ मिनिस्टर ने जिसने 5 साल पूरा किए हो और वो लौट के आया हो, ऐसा हुआ नहीं। तो ये पहली बार हुआ है। तो अब वो कौन से प्लेयर बनेंगे, ये मैं लोगों के विवेक पे छोड़ता हूं, क्योंकि कहा गया है जबान खलक ही जबान खुदा होती है, और आवाम की जबान से बड़ी कोई जबान नहीं होती। तो मैंने आउटसेट में भी कहा कि मैं किसी एनेटमी में नहीं जाना चाहता, किसी वर्बल डायरिया में नहीं जाना चाहता। इसलिए दिल्ली रॉयट्स, पावर शेयरिंग, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट दिल्ली के बारे में, इन सारे इश्यूज पे मैं नहीं जाता हूं। मैं केवल एक बात मानता हूं, ये सेकंड कंसेक्यूटिव इलेक्शन था उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर जिसमें
जी
अपोजिशन ने शमशान को इशू बनाया था। पिछली बार शमशान कब्रिस्तान का मुद्दा बनाया था, और
चले।
इस बार कोरोना के कब्रिस्तान और शमशान और मिसमैनेजमेंट को बनाया था। और उत्तर प्रदेश ने विकास के रास्ते को चुना, शमशान और कब्रिस्तान की पॉलिटिक्स को डेसिमेट कर
इस पे
दिया। सो
इस
इट्स अ
इस पे मैं
पॉजिटिव
कुछ
साइड।
कहना इस पे मैं कुछ
यस
कहना
यस यस
चाहूंगी।
यस, मोस्ट
इस पे
वेलकम।
मैं
इट्स
योगेंद्र
योर
जी से
इट्स
जाने से
योर
पहले मैं
शो।
कुछ कहना चाहूंगी, क्योंकि मैंने उन मैस ग्रेव्स पे बहुत रिपोर्टिंग की, और कोई भी इलेक्शन जीते, जो कोरोना में हुआ वो हुआ। इट डिडंट
इट
बिकम एन
वाज अ ट्रेजिक,
इलेक्टोरल इशू, डज
इट वाज
नॉट
अ ट्रेजिक थिंग।
अंडरमाइन, यस, डज नॉट अंडरमाइन द ट्रेजेडी दैट पीपल वेंट थ्रू। तो उससे हम ना जोड़ें तो आई
नहीं
थिंक
नहीं,
वो
उस
ठीक रहेगा।
मैं नहीं, लेकिन जिस तरह से उसे इलेक्शन इशू बनाया गया कि उत्तर प्रदेश में 50,000
चलिए,
मौतें हो गई, योगी आदित्यनाथ सोते रहे,
समझ
वो व्यक्ति
समझ
अपने पिता की चिता को छोड़कर उत्तर प्रदेश की चिंता करता रहा। और ये
ओके।
पॉजिटिव थिंकिंग है।
अच्छा, मैं योगेंद्र जी से एक बड़ा पर्सपेक्टिव सीखना चाहती हूँ, बिकॉज योगेंद्र, यू आर अ पॉलिटिशियन टुडे, बट यू स्टडीड पॉलिटिक्स मोर देन द रेस्ट ऑफ अस पुट टुगेदर. You had once said that the Congress needs to, in a sense, be raised to the ground before a new opposition building can be built. And there was a lot of backlash to you when you said that. Your words have come true today. What is the future you see for India's opposition today?
Barkha, I'm not interested in forecasting the future. I'm interested in making the future, what we can make of this future. Because for me, it's not an armchair exercise of trying to say what will happen. You would appreciate and understand. I'm concerned, I'm worried, and today I'm deeply disturbed because this is about the future of our generations. This is about the future of our country. And at the moment, this republic is being dismantled brick by brick every day. And sadly, the public has been mobilized, like in so many other countries, like in Russia, like in Turkey, Hungary, Sri Lanka, so many other places. Public is being mobilized to dismantle the republic. This is a very grave challenge. You cannot overcome it by pointing fingers at the people. You have to be with them. You have to understand them. So, to my mind, in the short term, which is up to 2024, the road was very tough. It got tougher today. And what we need is what needs to be done, to my mind, is genuine opposition, which to my mind doesn't reside so much in the Sansad, but actually on the Sarak. So, strengthening of movements, Satta se Sangharsh or Samaj se Samvad. This is what is needed. And by Samaj se Samvad, I mean those who have voted for BJP. I may dislike the ideology. I do dislike the ideology of BJP. I do consider RSS as anti-national. But those who vote for BJP are not anti-national. They are my brothers. They are my sisters. These are people I must relate to. I must speak their language. I must speak their metaphor. I must understand their concerns. So, the one thing that we need to learn from RSS today is bow your head, go to people, listen to them, and respond to them in their vocabulary, in their language. If we do so till 2024, and provided other things are also done, the one proposal I have is creation of a truth army to take on the troll army, which is completely vitiating the culture of this country. We also need to do something to intensify the agitations which are truly taking on this regime on the ground. And then there is a question of oppositional coordination, not opposition unity. We don't need a grand Gathbandhan of all the opposition, but we need a political coordination, synergizing of opposition. These three things need to be done. Today, the job has become more difficult, but the only saving grace in today's verdict is that it may have alerted millions of us to the real nature of the danger and challenge. It is time to sit up, and sometimes crisis is the best moment to sit up, reflect, and change the direction in which you want to move.
Okay, but Yogendra ji, I just have to push you back on one thing to explain. You said very rightly that fingers can't be pointed at people. And that is one thing to learn from the RSS, to bow your head and keep working. But you also said the republic is being dismantled. Now, this election is a free and fair process. The people have seen their future in UP, in the BJP, also in the other states, more or less, except Goa, which was a bit tighter. So when you say the republic is being dismantled and the people are being mobilized for that, what do you mean by that?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked me, Barkha, because I think the people are absolutely somehow scandalized by the idea that someone can say that a electoral mandate can actually produce very strange consequences. To all of them, I would wish to remind, because BJP people are particularly offended when I say this, I would humbly remind them that Congress used to win every single election in this country for first 30 years. What did Johnson do in those days? Did Johnson say, oh, they must have governed this country beautifully in order to win? They must have done wonderful work because they are winning. No, Johnson did not say that. They said there is something wrong in what the Congress was doing. Ram Manohar Lohia did not do that. He questioned the Congress, interrogated the Congress. So you can respect the verdict, and respecting the verdict is to say that Mr. Adityanath, if he becomes the chief minister, is a legitimate chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. He has every right to govern. And I have every right to criticize, to question, to account, to hold them responsible. This is what democracy is. I'm surprised that people can't make this elementary distinction. And to point out the consequences, Barkha, you would know the 20th century model of killing democracy was that someone would come on television and say, from tomorrow onwards, there is no democracy in the country. Constitution doesn't work and things of that kind. That was a crude model. 21st century of model of destroying democracy, and you can learn it from Mr. Putin, you can learn it from Mr. Erdogan, you can learn it from Hungary, you can learn it from many places. The 21st century model is to say, I love democracy, to actually mobilize once sporadic popular consent. Generating popular consent occasionally is integral to demolition of democracy in the 21st century.
Okay.
This is what Mr. Trump was trying to do. This is what has happened all over the world. So what is so strange if I say that about India? This is a real danger to democracy all over the world. And the idea is not to say, therefore, people are idiot. No, that's not the point. The point is, therefore, we are wrong in communicating to them. Therefore, we must examine our failures. Therefore, we must learn to speak to them. Therefore, we must learn to be more humble than we have been. The rulers, the anglicized, deracinated rulers of this country need to learn something from verdicts of this kind. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I need to get last comments from Nilanjan and Jasmine, because we really do have to cut to the Prime Minister is expected to speak any moment. Nilanjan briefly and Jasmine briefly. Go ahead. Nilanjan? Sorry, you're on mute. Can we unmute Nilanjan? And go ahead.
I don't have anything grand to add. I think I agree with Yogen quite strongly, although not as a commentator, not as someone who's doing politics. There's a question about how the opposition builds a narrative, what assertions it makes on the system, and that's what needs to be figured out today. This is a wholesale defeat for the Congress party. It is a system in flux. We do have the Aam Aadmi Party rising in one state. There is an open question as to whether it can grow and become a larger opposition in the country. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, and that's the cue to take Jasmine's last question. What state or set of states would be the Aam Aadmi Party's next electoral or political priority? I'm sorry, we need to unmute you as well. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For us, it's very clear the next two states that we are going to be fighting are Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh. And Gujarat, we already have a fantastic start. In the municipality of Surat Municipal Corporation, we've already replaced Congress as the opposition. But in terms of the larger trajectory, and let me very briefly comment on that, I think it's time now for all those who are worried about the rise of BJP and what it means for Indian democracy to no longer stand by the sidelines and complain. I would say that today the message that Arvind Kejriwal ji gave in his victory speech was that this is the time for people to join up. AAP today represents, it's the best force, political force that represents the aspirations of a new India, but also an India that can be, all of us can be proud of, that can held up to be at, in the scrutiny of global nations as a strong modern democracy. And this is the time to join up. Up is going to make sure that wherever we receive the love and the welcome of the people, we will make sure we will make all our effort. But the people now have to make a conscious decision. It's either further down the rabbit hole of a BJP vision for India, or join up and make the kind of India that all of us can be proud of.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for a civilized conversation. I know many of you don't see eye to eye on politics. I'm glad that we're still able to sit around and have a polite and robust and honest conversation. Yogendra Yadav, Nilanjan Sarkar, Jasmine Shah, Amit Puri, thank you. I'm ending a little bit earlier just because, please do forgive me, I have to go across to the BJP headquarters where the Prime Minister is scheduled to speak, and we do have to listen in on that and analyze and take, we'll get a lot of material there that we have to understand. So thank you, and let's go across now to the BJP headquarters, please, if we can. And there's the BJP party president.
उनको सशक्तिकरण देने का काम मोदी जी ने किया, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने किया, और इसलिए रसायन शास्त्र का गरीब व्यक्ति को जो वंचित था उसको रस मिलता है, तो वो नीतियों से मिलता है, कार्यक्रमों से मिलता है। इसको हमको याद रखना चाहिए। मित्रों, जब हम गांव, गरीब, वंचित, पीड़ित, शोषित, दलित इनकी बात करते हैं, तो हम साथ में यह भी कहते हैं कि चाहे उजाला हो, उज्ज्वला हो, सौभाग्य हो, आयुष्मान हो, प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना हो, प्रधानमंत्री किसान सम्मान निधि हो, ये सारे के सारे कार्यक्रम साधारण व्यक्ति का सशक्तिकरण करते हैं। और वो साधारण व्यक्ति जब चुनाव आता है तो अपना कीमती मत को संभाल कर रखता है और मोदी जी के नाम पर वो कमल के निशान पर बटन दबाता है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भारत की राजनीति की संस्कृति बदली है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भारत की राजनीति की संस्कृति बदली है। लंबे समय तक एक राजनीति चल रही थी, वह राजनीति थी भाई भतीजावाद, भ्रष्टाचार, सांप्रदायिकता, जातिवाद, परिवारवाद, क्षेत्रवाद, इनकी राजनीति लंबे समय से चल रही थी। लेकिन आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भारत की राजनीति बदल दी, उसकी संस्कृति बदल दी। अब रिपोर्ट कार्ड की राजनीति है, काम करोगे, जनता के बीच में जाओगे और जनता का आशीर्वाद लोगे। आज विकास की राजनीति है, आज सशक्तिकरण की राजनीति है, आज महिला सशक्तिकरण की राजनीति है, आज युवा सशक्तिकरण की राजनीति है, आज किसानों के सशक्तिकरण की राजनीति है। आज जो व्यक्ति समाज के अंतिम पायदान पर खड़ा था, जिसको कोई पूछता नहीं था, वोट का आधार मानता था, वोट बैंक पॉलिटिक्स करता था, उसको मुख्य धारा में लाने का काम और सशक्तिकरण का काम किया है तो आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने किया है, उनकी नीतियों ने किया है। मित्रों, जब मैं उत्तर प्रदेश की बात करता हूं तो हम जानते हैं 5 साल पहले वहां भय का वातावरण था, भ्रष्टाचार था, माफिया राज था, गुंडागर्दी थी, आतंकवादी दंगे करते थे, उनको नेताओं का संरक्षण मिलता था। लेकिन योगी जी ने लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को कंट्रोल करके वहां पर भय मुक्त समाज और भय मुक्त प्रदेश बनाने का काम किया, तो आदरणीय योगी जी ने किया। और उत्तर प्रदेश की जनता ने भरपूर आशीर्वाद दिया। अभी मैं नतीजे देख रहा था, हम 2/3 बहुमत की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं। यह परिस्थिति आकर के खड़ी हुई। जो माफिया राज दंड बनाते थे वह जेलों में बंद है। जो लोग भय का वातावरण बनाते थे वह खुद भयभीत है। यह परिस्थिति आज योगी जी ने की है, इसका भी हम सबको ध्यान रखना चाहिए। अगर हम मणिपुर की बात करें, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने नॉर्थ ईस्ट का ये पहले प्रधानमंत्री है जिन्होंने
I think we couldn't, that was JP Nadda speaking. We're still waiting for the Prime Minister to actually speak. And I'm actually, while we wait for the Prime Minister to speak, Nilanjan, if you just have a thought on what might the Prime Minister be focusing on today, and then we can go to the live stream when the Prime Minister speaks. But if you can, yeah, there you are. You've unmuted yourself. Go ahead, Nilanjan.
I don't know exactly what the Prime Minister wants to do, but clearly this is a big day for the BJP, and clearly he has played a large part in the BJP's performance in the state elections. So I suspect part of what he will seek to do is, of course, thank the electorate, but continue building that connection that he has slowly built since 2014. Before it was a national politics. Now we can see that this notion of national politics is creeping into the way that state elections are being done. And I expect that it will be that kind of an election. Now, the one question that I have, and I just don't know, it's an open question for everybody, is what is the relationship between him and Yogi looking like on the inside?
That's going to be the big one, and that's what nobody knows, because we forget that Yogi Adityanath was an afterthought. And I will tell you, I remember asking one BJP person in 2017, how come Yogi Adityanath was made the chief minister? And they said, well, he would be much more trouble for us if he were not on our side. So there's always been this sense of not being able to quite control Yogi Adityanath like many other BJP chief ministers can be. But go ahead, make your point.
No, that's exactly it. We know that he's caused consternation within the BJP, certainly within the state unit, right? Because he's centralized power and arrayed power to himself in a way that sometimes doesn't always work melodiously with centralizing power towards Modi. There's these two power centers in UP. And we saw that, the BJP machinery, after the first couple of phases, really pushed very hard on Ration and Modi, less on Yogi. But of course, given the kind of electoral performance that we see in UP, we know that Yogi Adityanath will get a fair amount of credit, and now it's going to be an interesting balancing act between the two.
Okay, Nilanjan, you've had a long day with us, and I'm going to let you go and get some of your own work done. Thank you for all your insights. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.